All right, man, peace. I remember very vividly back in 2010 when LeBron James announced that he was leaving the Cleveland Cavaliers to sign with the Miami Heat. I remember the reaction and the response from many of the top sports media pundits, how he was almost universally demonized, not only by them, but by the public at large. And it was very much akin to a runaway slave. People certainly wanted to see LeBron, quote unquote, get his comeuppance because he was an uppity nigga. And I rooted very hard for LeBron James and the Miami Heat to win the championship that year because I wanted him to be rewarded for having the courage to make the decision that he made, to commandeer his own life, his own future, and to show many of these more prominent black athletes that loyalty has no place in professional sports in regards to the athlete and the franchise. Because when the time comes, they will kick you to the side. And this is why I've always stated that LeBron James' greatest contribution, not just to basketball, but to professional sports, is that he showed many of the more prominent black athletes in the various major sports. And I separate him from Floyd Mayweather because Floyd also showed this on a far higher level, but he's in a singular sport. LeBron showed many of these prominent team sport black athletes that there was a new paradigm in regards to how the athlete related to the sport that he was in, to the sports world, and to his franchise. You have to put yourself and your family first. And I also thought that it was very revealing how LeBron was perceived after that, because he had a pretty wholesome image overall until that event occurred. And that's why it was so disappointing in 2011 when he got to the finals and the Dallas Mavericks pretty much mollywopped the Miami Heat. And it wasn't because they had more talent. It wasn't even because they were better coached. It was because LeBron James had a complete mental meltdown. And that will forever be on his record. I don't care what anyone says. Why do I bring all this up? Because Mr. Jason Terry, who's had a very notable 20-year career in the NBA and is now trying to sow the seeds of his crossover into the NBA media world, sat down with Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith to discuss LeBron James. So, of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Deep three, and he hit. That's a huge play by Jason Terry.
Left side is Terry. He hits another three.
What a finish by Jason Terry.
JT driving it down the lane, ships it up.
Beautifully executed.
The Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Dallas upsetting LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and the favored Miami Heat.
Kick outside. A three is good by Jason Terry.
Terry all the way to the rim, puts it up top.
And the Jet is in full flight down the floor.
Welcome back to First Take, and we are very hyped for our next guest, an NCAA champion with Arizona, an NBA champion with the Mavs, and former Sixth Man of the Year. And did I mention he's played 19 seasons in the NBA? Jason Terry with us. That is so impressive.
Thank you. It's definitely
the champion.
Once again, it's so funny to me. You have so many of these modern day NBA fans who talk about how the Jordan era was weak and things of that nature. There are so many players today who've been in the league for 20 years. Perimeter players. That was pretty much unheard of back in the day. Now, you had John Stockton. John put in 20 years, but he was at an elite level of fitness and overall basketball acumen. There are so many players today that are in their 20th, 21st season in an era that allegedly is supposed to be defined by hyper athleticism. So why is it that you have J.J. Barea still in the NBA? Of course, I mean, he's not a 20-year veteran, but J.J. Barea, T.J. McConnell, and these different guys floating around the NBA in an era that supposedly has made its mark for having super athletes. At the end of the day, what this era is mostly known for, or will be known for when it's looked back upon, is the genesis of the long-range shooting movement, as well as performance-enhancing drugs. And I do believe eventually a performance-enhancing drug scandal will hit the NBA. And many of the more notable players of this era are going to be put under far higher scrutiny because of it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. It may be squelched because it's not going to be good for the league's image if many of your more prominent members of your league are found to have been quote-unquote cheaters. We'll see what happens. But it's just interesting to me that Jason Terry is one of so many players in the league that have been able to stay around for 20 years. Why is that? It's because maybe the overall level of play in the NBA today in regards to understanding of the game is not quite as nuanced as people would like it to be. I'm on record as stating that I think that great players are great in any era. I don't care if it's the 60s, the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. I think that there are things that players today do better than players back in the day. My own personal opinion is that the NBA was at its peak from about 84 to 93. I think that the mid to late 90s era of basketball is very overrated. I think that it was far more physical and defensive. But I do believe that there was way too much hero ball being played in that era from about 96 to about 2004. And it took away from the league. I think today it might be a little bit too free-flowing. Not quite as much defense, but defense is far harder to play today because the players have to cover more ground because of the long-range shooting that so many teams can display. But again, it's just very interesting to me, the preponderance of players in the league today in the backcourt that are playing 18, 19, 20, 21 years. And you just didn't have that 25 years ago. Most guards in the league were out by 10 to 12 years if they were good. I remember Maurice Cheeks was known for being in the league for a long time. Of course, John Stockton, he played from 84, I believe, to 2003, 2004, somewhere around there. But just very interesting.
Champion thing is too, but 19 years?
19 years.
Unreal. All right, let's get right into it. So you beat LeBron in the finals in 2011. What's the key to stopping him?
Well, the biggest key is being able to have multiple defenders that can withstand the initial thrust. Because if he blows by you right away, you're dead.
Well, you know what? That was the scouting report. That was the game plan back in 2011. Now, with the way in which LeBron James can shoot the basketball, the best way to defeat him is to use him against himself. Meaning, make him believe that he's in control of the game. Let him do what he does. He's going to over-dribble the ball a lot. Just make sure that you close out on his shooters on the offensive end, move the basketball, make him and his team work. LeBron has tried to nullify the offensive game plan that teams try to use against him when he's playing defense by no longer playing defense. He just stands in the lane and acts as if he's a free safety. And all that does is hamper his own team defensively. So I think that the records show that teams with a high level of basketball IQ normally beat LeBron as long as they have at least one star. So when you're San Antonio, you have a Tim Duncan, a Kawhi Leonard on the come up. You're Golden State with a Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, etc. Even a Boston Celtics, once they get their stars back, they will beat LeBron. Because that is his kryptonite. Teams with high basketball IQ are his kryptonite. Because he believes that his own personal IQ can go up against team IQ. And that's where the difference comes in. That, once again, to me, is why LeBron is not on the level of a Larry Bird. That's why I have Larry Bird above LeBron, and I will continue to have him above LeBron until LeBron wins his 4th title.
The second thing is a good team defense behind that initial thrust, which, as you've seen in this series, the Celtics have. They have multiple defenders, and they have a great system behind you if they get beat.
Jason, talk to me about the difference from the LeBron James you guys saw in that 2011 NBA Finals and the LeBron James you're witnessing today.
LeBron back in 2011 was scared. Very scared player. And I think that a lot of it has to do with the ongoing onslaught from Mr. Skip Bayless, who he happened to finally get over when he won the 2012 Finals. I think that LeBron has learned to keep certain criticism where it belongs, away from him. That's why he makes sure that he tunes everything and everyone out during the playoffs, as he should. But there's no doubt in my mind that Skip Bayless was able to permeate into his subconscious around that time period of 2010 to 2011. Now he's more mature, he's more manly from a certain standpoint. He understands how to make sure that he can categorize certain things as irrelevant, certain things are relevant. And that's what happens when you mature. That's what happens when you grow. You realize what's important and what's not. And it allows you to focus. And I believe that that's one of the main reasons why he's been able to diversify his game. His offensive attacks are far more diverse than they've ever been. His left hand, for example, is excellent. His left-handed finishes are very high level. That's something that he did not have when he first came into the league.
Tremendous difference. I mean, mentally, this guy is on a whole nother plateau. Game, physically wise, he's definitely bigger, stronger, more. Well,
there's some reasons for that. You got to talk to his biochemist. LeBron right now has the physique that Karl Malone had back around 1999, 2000. And is still able to run up and down the floor for 42 minutes. Isn't that interesting? A player who can maintain that level of muscle mass while playing at the pace of modern NBA play. Very interesting.
More endurance, but his jump.
Yeah, more endurance too. That's true. Even though, as I've stated in another video, LeBron is basically good for up to about 45, maybe 47 points. When he starts to get up beyond that, unless you're giving him free reign to the basket, his body starts to give out.
Jump shot, his all-around game. Now he has a post-up game. He has fadeaways.
Well, he doesn't use the post-up as much as he should. But his fadeaways are very, very good. As I've stated, he's probably one of the top 10, if not top 5 players in the league, just in regards to two-point jump shooting. He's greatly improved that. Two-point jump shooting off the dribble.
He has the left step back, and he stretched his range out to 3, and he's doing it efficiently. Everything is much more consistent now. Back then, he was much more one-dimensional, where he would ISO from the left side, and you kind of knew, you could predict what moves he would make.
Jason, how much of that, because obviously it's a very different LeBron that, for some of the reasons you mentioned, but do you think, and I realize this kind of goes hand in hand, but if you had to choose one or another, how much of this has been his emotional development? The moment's not too big for him anymore. He doesn't have to worry about deferring to someone else. Maybe it's Wade's team. And how much of it is what you just mentioned, the skills? Like, to me, it feels like more than anything, his mental game is much more mature than it used to be.
Well, when he went to Miami, playing alongside D. Wade and immersing himself in the culture that was created by Pat Riley, it imbued him with an understanding of manhood that he'd never had before. Because he damn sure did not learn it in how he was raised by his mother. And please understand, he came straight from high school into the NBA, so he had no transitional period where he was indoctrinated into any type of understanding on how to create an air of authority as someone who could be a leader. And that's what he learned playing with the Miami Heat and playing under Pat Riley. And you know what's so funny? People always say LeBron's never played with a great coach. Well, actually, he has played under a great coach, that being Erik Spoelstra, who's an extension of Pat Riley. Now, Erik Spoelstra will never be viewed like a Phil Jackson because LeBron didn't stay there long enough for Erik Spoelstra to get a lot of the credit that he so richly deserves. Because without a doubt, LeBron played his best overall basketball under Erik Spoelstra, where that team was also known for ball movement. Erik Spoelstra was the only coach that was truly able to intermix a real basketball system with the LeBron James system. And I think that's what started to frustrate LeBron a little bit after a while, is that he wanted control of everything, and Miami was not going to give him full control over everything. But what they did do was they showed him how to win, and he took that back to Cleveland, and that's why he's so relaxed, because now he has a resource that he can refer to whenever he's in times of adversity. He could say, we went through this in Miami.
Well, as an NBA player, once you come in, obviously you've been drafted. Everyone that's been drafted has the ability to play at this level, but 90% of it is all mental. I mean, we all have the skills. LeBron has the ultimate skill, obviously because of his body type and then his basketball IQ. So for him, I think it all boiled down to once he got over that hurdle of winning a finals, now it was all about, can I continue to do this for a long period of time? And he's showing you time and time again. 7 consecutive finals. He's won now 3 NBA Finals championships. And he's done it, again, in Miami. Now he's done it with Cleveland, with help, with no help. So he's proven to you.
No, sir. LeBron James has never won a championship without help. As a matter of fact, he's been on the most stacked teams in the NBA from 2010 all the way to 2016 when Golden State signed Kevin Durant. That was the first time last season was the first time that LeBron was not on the most talented team in the NBA roster-wise since 2010. That was the first time. He's only won 3 championships. And I give him a bit of credit from the 2010-2011 season to the 2015-2016 season. So in 6 years, he was able to win 3 championships. It's not bad. It's not bad. But due to the fact that supposedly he's the greatest player of all time, he's the most physically imposing player in a league of transcendent athletes, and he had the most stacked roster, he was supposed to win more than 3 out of 6 titles. And to be quite frank with you, we can make the case that 2 out of those 3 titles that he did win, he shouldn't have won. But, it is what it is.
That he is the man, he is the king on the throne, and he doesn't look like he's tapering off anytime soon.
Well, when players get up into that age of around 33, 34, 35, depending on how well they treat their body, you can push off Father Time. But when that drop-off happens, it normally happens very drastically.
Jason, when you look at this Boston-Cleveland series right now, what has stood out in your mind as to why Boston is up 2-0, and how, if at all, can Cleveland tie this series?
As you brothers can see, this segment was taped while Cleveland was playing Boston and while they were down 0-2.
Well, if you look at what Brad Stevens has done without his 2 superstars, he's empowered his younger guys and give them huge responsibility and huge confidence. But offensively, the way he controls the game, if they don't get what they want in transition, they are going to exhaust every option they have in the half court until they get the look they want. What that does for you is it gives you a set defense that Cleveland has to go up against. Cleveland doesn't want to play half-court basketball. They want to get out in transition, run, play free, give it to LeBron, and shoot threes. When they control the tempo the way they're doing offensively, it's hard for Cleveland to get into transition and get those threes off.
Jason, I realize, obviously, there are differences. You guys had Tyson Chandler to clean up mistakes, even if the defense failed somehow, or it just allowed you guys to play more aggressively on defense at times. You swung the ball and all those things. But still, it was like a 1 superstar team with Dirk Nowitzki and a bunch of cold-blooded shooters who could hit shots. The role players could hit shots when they needed to.
Let me say this very quickly, and I've mentioned this in previous videos. The 2011 Dallas Mavericks are the team that transitioned the NBA style of play from the hero ball era to the style of play that we have today, which is the drive and kick and the spread offense. Of course, the Phoenix Suns under Mike D'Antoni are the team that really brought that style more into favor in 2004. But the NBA during that time was a league in transition, trying to find its way from the hero ball, overly defensive era of the early 2000s, and trying to make sure that they could promote their stars while making the game easier to watch. So in the mid to late 2000s, fortunately for the NBA, Kobe Bryant was finally able to take the pieces that Phil Jackson and the Lakers front office were able to provide for him and cultivate and really raise up the watchability of the NBA in the late 2000s. The Lakers were very important at the beginning of the 2000s and the end of the 2000s in assisting the NBA in transitioning from the Michael Jordan era. Very important. And in the late 2000s, the Lakers probably played the most watchable form of hero ball that we saw in the 2000s, which prepped the league for the transition to the LeBron James era. But that little interregnum period was commandeered by the Dallas Mavericks, who were essential in totally ending the hero ball era when they swept the LA Lakers in 2011. And then, of course, they showed the Miami Heat how they needed to improve in the finals, because the Heat oftentimes would have periods where the ball movement was stagnant. LeBron would hold the basketball too much. And then, of course, in the offseason, Dwayne Wade showed his largesse by divesting control of the Miami Heat over to LeBron James. And off they went. But people also forget that, I believe it was in the offseason of 2011, the Dallas Mavericks were forced to allow Tyson Chandler to leave. He was a pivotal piece of their championship team. And that, of course, took away any chances that they had to repeat as champions. But that 2011 Mavericks team, they were truly essential in changing over the style of play in the NBA from the hero ball era to the ball movement, look for an open shooter era that we have today.
So I realize there are some differences, but LeBron certainly is at least as effective as Dirk was then, but his role players are not coming through. What do they need to do to come through in this series?
Well, you got to look at our team too, Max. I mean, you're talking about role players, but we had the ultimate role players. You're talking about a Hall of Fame point guard and Jason Kidd that could set the table for us. Ultimate key defenders like Sean Marion, Tyson Chandler. You look at the Cleveland Cavaliers roster.
Terry, who kill you in the clutch?
I forgot about myself. How can I? But Cleveland Cavaliers don't have that personnel. They just don't. They got some young guys who they've traded for, and they're not ready for the moment. Let's be honest. Clarkston.
They're not good enough.
They're just not ready yet. They're not ready. I wouldn't say good enough. They're just not ready yet. They haven't been in enough series like this at this magnitude.
Well, last time I checked, Jaylen Brown is 21, Jason Tatum is 19. Boston has a relatively young squad, and Cleveland has gotten this far, despite some of the things that they could be doing better.
Yeah.
Well, Stephen A. Smith, what we saw in the aftermath of Game 2 in Boston going up 2-0 is that LeBron James was able to gain the supremacy over Brad Stevens, because that's all that series was truly about. The LeBron James system versus the Brad Stevens system. Brad Stevens, despite his great macrocosmic understanding of the game, did not have the soldiers that he needed to fully implement the schemes that he would need to be able to overcome LeBron James, because at the end of the day, high-level playoff basketball is about your star being better than the opposing team's star, or your stars being able to overcome the opposing team's best players. And Boston just didn't have that. That's why, once again, when you look at the annals of the NBA, you have to go back almost 40 years before you find another team that won a championship without a transcendent player. You have the 2004 Detroit Pistons, and before that, you have to go all the way back to 1979.
You saw guys step up. So what is it about this particular series that suddenly they can't do anything right, when that clearly wasn't the case for 4 games in the first round and for all 4 games in the semifinals?
Well, think about Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, what they've endured this season. They've been given that responsibility of trying to carry the team on their back in different periods of time throughout the season. Clarkson hasn't been counted on by Cleveland to do much of anything but provide a spark. George Hill, he's really just out there. He's a shell of himself, and he hadn't had that responsibility. So Cleveland...
Yeah, but you know what? How much worse is George Hill than Mario Chalmers? People keep trying to act as if LeBron James is a player that needs a great point guard on his team. LeBron wants to run the point. That's why Kyrie Irving left in the first place. Fortunately for Cleveland, Kyrie has unbelievable offensive skills. Or what purpose would he really have had on that team? There are certain players that don't play well with great point guards. Like Jordan didn't do well with a great point guard, because he was a player that as soon as they crossed half court in the mid to late 80s, he wanted the basketball. Jordan truly was similar to a high basketball IQ Russell Westbrook. That's why I use the term Westbrook and not Westbrick, because Jordan's basketball IQ and his decision making was so non-pareil, even in the late 80s, when the Bulls really had no real idea on how to win, that he was still able to shoot 53-54% from the field, taking crazy shots, getting double teamed. Once again, when you compare Michael Jordan to any other player in NBA history, you really have to know what you're talking about to quantify that argument.
Even these guys like J.R. Smith, Kyle Korver, Kevin Love, those champions, the guys that have been there before, to step up. And they haven't showed up yet in this series, but
Very difficult for your ancillary players to shine in the LeBron James system. Very difficult. Kevin Love is a Hall of Fame player. He's a great offensive player. And he gets denigrated on a daily basis because he has to play with LeBron James. LeBron James takes a 22-point per game guy and turns him into a 14-point per game guy, and people blame the 14-point per game guy. How could you blame someone who barely gets a chance to touch the basketball? Now, Kevin Love, when he was in Minnesota, was not an especially proficient shooter. He normally would shoot somewhere between 43 and 45% from the field. So he was clearly a guy who was used to getting volume shots. You can't bring him on to Cleveland and say, Kevin Love, we're going to give you 12 shots a game. We need you to make 8 out of 12 shots every game. That's not going to happen. He has to get somewhere around 18, 17 shots a game to get into his flow.
But I can guarantee you one thing. At home in Cleveland, their confidence will be up. The crowd will be into it. And this series will become a series. Because
you brothers listening to this video, you might as well apply what's being said to the Golden State Warriors series. Because as of now, Golden State is up 2-0.
Because right now, it is a complete blowout.
Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? What about LeBron next season? Where do you see him playing?
You never know where he's going to go. The newest report is that supposedly it's a done deal that he's going to end up with the LA Lakers. Now, who knows who's putting out that information? It could be one of the LA media outlets at the behest of Magic Johnson. Who knows?
That's a great question. And everybody wants to know, but
Yeah.
I see him back in Cleveland. I mean, where
Really?
are
With
you
this team?
going?
Houston, we've heard Houston, we've
Yeah,
heard
but
Philly,
you really
we've
want
heard
to go.
LA. He's
You
got a
really
home
want to
there.
go team up with James Harden and Chris Paul.
Yeah.
I agree. I've said that myself. It looks great on paper, but I don't see LeBron fitting into that system. And then just for him and Chris Paul to sign there, who else are they going to be able to bring onto that team? They need to have shooters. And PJ Tucker has shown that he's become an extremely valuable piece to that franchise. Are they going to be able to have the glue guys, the shooters, the rim runners that they're going to need for that system to be successful if you have a James Harden, a LeBron James, and a CP3 with max contracts on the same team? I just don't see it.
Yeah, maybe try to beat the Warriors.
Yeah, but he can beat the Warriors. He did it last year. He already did it.
No, sir. He can't beat the Warriors. He beat them in 2016 after about 8 things went his way. That's why Molly Karam's giving you the side eye. Like, give me a break.
That's not really high up on his plateau. So I think he stays in Cleveland, continues to see the process out, and try to put a better supporting cast around him.
All right. We'll take a quick break with you, but you're sticking around with us?
I'm here.
Well, that's pretty much going to be it on this video in regards to Jason Terry, because then he goes on to talk about the Houston Rockets Golden State Warriors series, and as we know, that's kaput. But anyway, I just wanted to make this video because Jason Terry made some statements that would allow me to speak on certain things that have occurred in LeBron James's past and how it correlates to what's going on now in the NBA with LeBron. So peace.